A very warm good afternoon to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to today's session. This is class number 3, that is the third masterclass for economics in this ongoing prelims crash course. I hope all of you are doing good, and I really hope that all of you have had the chance to attend the earlier classes as well. As I said, this is class number 3. We have already had a couple of classes where we have discussed the most important and relevant topics for economics for this year's prelims examination. If it is not just for those who are planning to write this year's prelims, even if you are planning to attempt the prelims next year or even beyond that, please make sure that you do watch these videos, because these are going to be extremely helpful for you to understand not just the basics of economics, also to understand some of the other nitty-gritties of what can or cannot be asked in the examination. Before we begin, once again reminding you that we at Narayana IAS Academy are here to help you out in your journey to achieve your goal of becoming an IAS officer. For that, we are offering you a couple of courses. One, it's a 1-year course, and second, it's a 2-year course, depending upon what would be the target year that you are aiming to. Also, in both of these courses, you will get comprehensive coverage of the entire syllabus, from prelims to the mains to the interview stage of the examination. There will be a special focus on current affairs. There will be a special focus on answer writing practice, practicing as many prelims questions as possible. If you want any other information about these courses, feel free to check out the description of our video, where you will find a link which will have all the information regarding all these courses. You'll also have your own micro schedule depending upon what is your requirement and where do you stand at this point of time. With that out of the way, let's begin our class for the day. Now, in the past 2 days, we have discussed a bunch of important topics ranging from the economic survey of India, about some of the other nitty-gritties of how the price rise happens in the economy. We have also discussed about the role of off-budget borrowings, how the government borrows money, so on and so forth. Moving on, the next topic that we are taking up starting today is something called the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC. Now, before you dive deep into what is the MPC, what does it do, where exactly does it stand, please understand there is a very simple term that all of you should be aware of while reading economics, that is called inflation. Inflation means a general rise in prices of commodities around you. In simple terms, just go back 10 years or so. The stuff that you used to buy 10 years ago is not available to you at the same cost today. And that is true for most of the things around you. The clothes that you buy, the instruments that you buy, the furniture that you have at your place, the food that you buy, even the street food that you love so dearly, none of that is available at the same price point at which it was available, let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That general price rise is termed as inflation. It's a reality in every economy that there will be a steady inflation. Now, zero inflation is also bad. You can't have a sleeping economy where it is just not improving. But inflation has to be within a certain limit. What is that limit in India? In India, the inflation targeting, that is the target to have inflation within a certain limit, is actually 4% plus minus 2%. Means where we actually want the inflation to be is 2 to 6%. This is our goal, that we have to remain within 2 to 6% of this inflation. Now, this inflation targeting is an exercise, meaning which that we have to target to be within this particular range of inflation. Now, who does that? In the sense that who has a responsibility to target inflation in India? That is the RBI, not the government. Understand this. Although the government does play a big role in inflation, because ultimately, if there is too much inflation, if the prices of the commodities are rising rapidly, it will harm the government. Because ultimately, it is the government of India that has to go, or the political party that has to go and ask for votes from the people. If there is too much inflation, people will not vote for the party. So, political parties or the governments do try and control inflation. However, officially, it is the responsibility of the central bank, that is the Reserve Bank of India, to control inflation. For that specific purpose, there is a committee that has been created. This is called the Monetary Policy Committee. So, it is this committee that has the responsibility to target inflation, to make sure that inflation remains within this particular range, that is 2 to 6%. Now, This remains in the news quite often because every single quarter, that is every 3 months, there is compulsory one meeting of MPC. So it has to meet at least 4 times in a year, that means at least once in a quarter, where they will decide policy rates. When you say policy rates, RBI or the Monetary Policy Committee, mainly when they meet, they decide on what exactly will be the repo rate, what will be the reverse repo rate. For example, if you are watching this today, that is on the day that we are coming live to you, today itself there has been an announcement from the Monetary Policy Committee, that is the RBI, has reduced repo rate by 25 basis point. Means they have brought it down. We'll discuss what that means exactly. But Monetary Policy Committee decides a policy rate. They decide what will be the repo rate, what will be the reverse repo rate, using which they can actually determine how much money will be available in the market, whether taking money will be easier to the banks or whether it will be more difficult for the banks. Now, this Monetary Policy Committee, as I'm talking about, has 6 members in total. Out of these 6 members, 3 are from the RBI, that is the RBI governor, that is the head, and then the 2 other people from the RBI, that is the RBI deputy governors. So RBI has 4 deputy governors, and then remaining 3 people are nominated by the government. So it's a kind of a balance, that is 3 from the RBI, 3 from the government of India. Now, before you think that both of them have equal powers, that is the RBI and the government, that is not true. The reason being that the decisions of this committee are taken by a majority vote. So the members vote, whichever side the majority is on, that decision will be taken. Because there are 6 members, there is a possibility of 3-3 division. 3 people might say yes, 3 people might say no. In case of a 3-3 division, the deciding vote or casting vote, as it is called, is with the RBI governor. So RBI governor has the casting vote in case of a tie. That is how the Monetary Policy Committee works. Now, Monetary Policy Committee is not very old. If you think it has been in existence for a long time, that is not true. It's a very recent kind of a development. Why? Because it was a result of 2014 recommendation of Urjit Patel Committee. Urjit Patel, a deputy governor, former deputy governor of RBI. Under his leadership, a committee was formed in 2014 about suggesting about how monetary policy should be decided in India, what reforms are required. So the Urjit Patel Committee in 2014 suggested that we should have something like a Monetary Policy Committee. Based on the suggestion of Urjit Patel Committee, in 2016, a commission was made and it was supposed to work independently, means no pressure from the government. This body, that is a Monetary Policy Committee, came into being as an amendment in the RBI Act of 1934. So from this, the important takeaway that you should have is the Monetary Policy Committee is a statutory body. It's a statutory body in the sense that I hope all of you know there are 3 types of government bodies mainly that you usually read about. One, there is a constitutional body, the ones that are established by the Constitution of India, about which the Constitution carries some provisions, some articles. For example, we have the Election Commission of India, we have the CAG, we have the UPSC. These are all constitutional bodies. Second, we have something called the statutory bodies. Statutory bodies are the ones which are created by an act of parliament. So statutory bodies are the ones that are created by an act of parliament. That is, the parliament passes an act under which the body gets created. That is a statutory body. There are many examples of that as well. For example, you all would know about Central Information Commission, Central Vigilance Commission, there is National Human Rights Commission. All of these are statutory bodies. Similarly, Monetary Policy Committee, that is the MPC, is also statutory body. Why? Because it is now a part of the RBI Act. Third, as you know, the third kind of body is an executive body. Executive bodies are those that are created by the government just by giving an executive order. So government may just issue an order that we would want to create such a such body, and the body will be created. That is an example, or example for this is Niti Aayog, or earlier it was Planning Commission. all the committees that the government forms from time to time for various purposes, all of these mainly are executive bodies. Executive bodies do not require any permission from the parliament. They don't require any change in the constitution. The government will just issue an order and the body shall be created. These are the three different types of bodies, and UPSC has this habit of asking this very regularly. They will give you a name of a body and they'll ask you whether it is a constitutional body, statutory body, executive body, so on and so forth. So, Monetary Policy Committee is an executive body, or a statutory body rather, formed under the RBI Act. They are the ones who decide the policy rate. So, as I said, what exactly is their objective? What do? They decide the policy rate, because of which then later on the result is they make sure that there is price stability. Price stability means there should not be too much inflation. That is, we should not have a situation where inflation goes out of range. So, to maintain prices of the commodity so that the people still have significant purchasing power in their hand. Then economic growth support, that is, we have a situation where the RBI does not want to take out too much money from the market. Now, please understand the basic idea of inflation. You need to understand this to understand the work of Monetary Policy Committee. Inflation means increase in prices. Now, increase in price of commodities usually may happen because of two reasons. One reason is that there is too much money in the hands of the people. When you have too much money with you, you will spend too much money, you will buy stuff at a higher price, or you will be ready to buy stuff at a higher price. So, too much money in the hands, too much money supply causes inflation, number one. Second kind of inflation, or the second reason for inflation is when there is a restriction in the supply of a commodity. Like for example, if you think, or if there is a situation where two or more oil producing countries go on a war. If there is a situation where two countries go on a war, let's say there was a Gulf War in 1990, Iraq versus Kuwait, when oil producing countries go on a war, means they will not be able to produce oil. So, there is shortage of oil supply and the oil prices will increase automatically. That is also inflation. So, inflation can be because of supply side or because of the fact that demand has increased because people have too much money in their hands. Now, in reality, RBI cannot do much when it comes to the issue of supply side, because if there is not enough supply, if there is not enough, let's say, production of onion, production of tomatoes, RBI can't do much. So, what RBI does to control inflation is to take out money from the market. When RBI thinks that inflation is going too much, it's going above 6%, they try to take money out of the market so that people don't have enough money, they can't spend a lot and they can't overpay for things and the prices will automatically stabilize. The problem with that is, in India, historically, inflation has not been because we have too much money in our hands. Historically, the issue of inflation in India has usually been from the supply side. The second issue here that we face is, if the RBI by mistake takes out too much money from the market. See, to control inflation, they are taking money out of the market. But if they take too much money out of the market, that means people will not buy stuff, even the essentials will not be bought. It will lead to a stagnation in the economy. There will be a problem that the companies are not able to sell their product. It will lead to our development, our GDP growth going down. So, RBI has to make sure that they support the economic growth and they stabilize the price. So, both of these have to be done in a balancing act by the RBI, which is not very easy to find that balance, that we are not increasing the prices of commodities, but at the same time we are leaving enough cash in the hands of the people to buy products so that the economy keeps on growing. Then they also have to decide, as I said, repo rate and reverse repo rate, that is the policy rates, are decided by the Monetary Policy Committee. Now, as I told you, they meet once at least in a quarter. So, there have to be at least 4 meetings in a year and the decisions are taken by a majority. In that majority, or if there is a voting pattern where 3 and 3 people are on one side and the other side, it is the RBI governor that holds a casting vote. It is not necessary that all the members will always be present. Anywhere you can't be sure that all the members will always be present. So, there has to be a quorum. Quorum means what is the minimum number of members that are required to have a valid meeting. That is 4. So, at least 4 members have to be present. If the meeting has to go on. Out of these four, one has to be the RBI governor. So RBI governor must be present, and RBI governor also makes a quorum. This is how the Monetary Policy Committee usually works. With that out of the way, let's see if you are able to answer some of the questions. I have a couple of practice questions rather, and then I have a related previous year question as well from you. We'll do the same stuff as we were doing yesterday. I would take the side, I would urge you to read this carefully, pause on this screen, think about what the answer is in your mind, write down the answer, and then evaluate whether you got it right or wrong. Okay? All right. I hope you all have gotten this. Let's see. With reference to Monetary Policy Committee in India, consider the following statements. Number one, it is a statutory body, this part is correct, constituted under RBI Act of 1934, this is also correct, with the mandate of determining the policy repo rate to achieve inflation targeting. Absolutely right, this is what we discussed. The inflation target in India is 2 to 6% and they try to achieve that, and they are a statutory body. Second, the decisions of MPC are binding on the RBI with respect to both the policy rate and the CRR. Now, this is where you have to understand this part is wrong. In economics, all of you would have read about CRR, cash reserve ratio. In simple terms, a part of money that is available with the banks, they have to keep in the form of cash with themselves. For example, if there is a sudden demand of withdrawal from the banks, a bank should not say, oh, I don't have enough cash available. A part of money that the banks have should always be available with them in the form of cash. This is called as cash reserve ratio, CRR. How much would that be? Again, it is decided by the RBI. However, it is the RBI that decides this. Monetary Policy Committee does not. As I have been telling you, Monetary Policy Committee mainly only decides the repo rate and the reverse repo rate. Other parameters, other things that the banks have to maintain like CRR, etc. are decided by the RBI in general, but not the MPC. The difference is that in the MPC, we have a representation from the government as well. So CRR, no, not decided by the Monetary Policy Committee. Third, in case of a tie in voting amongst the MPC members, a governor of the RBI has a casting vote. Absolutely yes, this is what we discussed. There are 6 members, so there is a possibility of 3 and 3 vote dividing, and in that case, the casting vote will be with the governor of the RBI. He or she will be the one who will decide what will be considered here. So the answer is 1 and 3. 2 of these are correct. B would be the answer. I hope you got this one right. Not a difficult question by the standards of UPSC. This is the explanation part of it. If you want, you can take a screenshot for your future reference. Moving on to another question. Again, we'll do the same. I would urge you, read this question carefully in detail, pause on the screen, think about what the answer would be, and then we will play it again. If you have thought about it, let's see the question. Which of the following provisions or consequences are applicable if the Monetary Policy Committee fails to meet inflation target for 3 consecutive quarters? Means, if the Monetary Policy Committee, as we discussed, they have a target of 2 to 6%. So what happens if they are not able to achieve this target for 3 consecutive quarters? Means for 3 consecutive months, if they are not able to achieve target, what happens? First, RBI must send a report to the Government of India explaining the reason for failure, remedial action, and the time frame for resolution. Yes, absolutely correct. If the RBI is not able to achieve the target, they have to give in writing to the government why are they failing, what is it that they are going to do, what is the remedy that they have thought of, and what is the expectation in the future. Second, the inflation target is considered missed if headline CPI inflation falls outside the tolerance band for even a single month. No. The question itself, this statement itself will tell you that the second statement is wrong. Why? Because a target has to be missed consecutively for 3 quarters. Means for 9 months. If for 9 months consecutively the inflation target is missed, then the Monetary Policy Committee has failed, not otherwise. Second will be wrong. If the failure occurs, a monetary policy framework agreement is suspended for the remainder of the financial year. No, nothing like that happens. Even if the Monetary Policy Committee is not able to target inflation properly, even if the target is not achieved, if it goes beyond the target, even then, no strict action has to be taken. The only action is the first one, that they have to send a written report to the government explaining why they failed and what will they do in the future. Apart from that, no action as such has to be taken. So third also is wrong, only one is correct. The answer has to be B. Okay, I hope you got this one right. Again, it's not a difficult question, but please understand, if such a target is not met, the only thing that will happen is a written explanation has to go from the RBI to the government, and nothing else should happen here. You can take a screenshot here if you wish to, for your future reference, for your revision's sake. Now I have a related previous year question, not exactly but slightly related to it. Let's see if you can answer this. Again, read this, pause on the screen, think about the answer, write it in a sheet of paper. Then you can play and we'll see if you got that right or not. Okay. The question was asked in Prelims 2020, so just a few years back. If RBI decides to adopt an expansionist monetary policy, which of the following would it not do? Please remember, you have to read each and every word very carefully. If RBI wants to have an expansionist monetary policy, what would it not do? Okay. First of all, what do you mean by expansionist monetary policy? Expansionist monetary policy means allowing more money in the hands of the people. So RBI can either have an expansionist policy, or they can have a contraction policy, means they would want to suck out money. So expansionist policy means they want to expand the amount of money in the hands of the people. So they want to make it easier for the people to take loan from the bank. In turn, they want to make it easier for the banks to take money from RBI. So which of this would the RBI not do in that case? Cut and optimize statutory liquidity ratio. So SLR again is a portion of money that the banks have to keep in the form of government securities, gold, etc. When the RBI cuts it, means they are telling the banks you don't need to keep so much money in gold and government security, means banks have more free money that they can now use to give out loans. So yes, RBI basically will do this. You have to tell which of this the RBI will not do. This is something RBI will do. So this is not the answer. Increase a marginal standing facility rate. What is this rate? The marginal standing facility rate is the rate of interest at which the RBI gives a loan to the bank on an overnight basis, on an emergency basis, for a very, very short term period. If the banks loan or the banks want money from the RBI charges this rate, marginal standing facility. If they increase the rate, that means it will be difficult for the banks to take a loan. That means it will be difficult for the banks to give loan. So this is contrary to expansionist policy. Again, expansionist policy means RBI would want more money in the market. This is against it. So this is something RBI will not do. So this is one of the answers, because you have to tell what the RBI will not do. Third, cut the bank rate and repo rate. When the RBI cuts bank rate and repo rate, means the RBI is making it easier for the banks to take a loan. That is also something RBI will do if they want to expand. So which of these that RBI will not do if they want to expand the money supply or monetary policy? That is only two. Again, read the question very, very, very carefully. Some people might get confused here. The question asking which of this RBI will not do. Second, they will not do because it will make it difficult for the banks to take money from RBI and distribute as loans. 1 and 3 here are absolutely correct. Okay. Sorry, 1 and 3 are wrong. Second is the answer here, B. This was a question asked in 2020. That is why you should read each and every word of the question very carefully till the end. Are they asking you which of this RBI will do or won't do? This may lead to slight confusion here. Let's move to the second topic then. The second topic for the day that we have is US Federal Reserve's policy decisions. Now, just like we have the RBI in India, we also have the Federal Reserve in US. Just like RBI is our central bank, Federal Reserve is the American central bank. Just like in India, RBI takes policy decisions in order to control inflation. Similarly, in the US also, the US Federal Reserve takes decisions in order to control inflation or the money supply in their country. The difference between RBI and Federal Reserve mainly is if RBI takes a certain decision, it has an impact within the country only, it doesn't have an impact outside the country. However, because the entire world is so connected to the American economy, because everyone is looking towards the American economy, any decision by the Federal Reserve has a significant impact on many countries around the world, including India. Why? Let's take a very simple example to understand this. Investors around the world are looking for opportunities to invest money. They all know that the safest place in the world, or the safest country in the world, to invest their money is America. Because they know for a fact that if we invest our money in America, there is a 0% chance that the government will fall down, or there is a 0% chance that there will be a coup against the government. American economy will remain stable. And America at the end of the day has this power that because dollar is the reserve currency, ultimately if they really want, they can print the dollar. So if you have invested money in America, it is almost 100% certain that your money is safe. Again, I'm not saying whether you will get high rate of return or low rate of return. That is not the argument here. The argument is at least an investment made in a country like America is safe. You won't have to worry about your money getting lost. However, even then, many investors don't prefer investing in America. The reason is simple. The safer the country is, the lower the rate of interest you will get, the lower the investment return will be. Because America knows right now, everyone in the world would be glad to invest in America. When you have so many investors coming your way, why would you want to attract them by offering high rate of return? Even if you offer low rate of return, you are fine. Now comes the US Federal Reserve. When the US Federal Reserve changes their rates, for example, if they improve the rate of interest for government securities, if they increase the rate of interest, the moment they increase the rate of interest, the investors around the world will think, oh, now let us invest our money in America. Why? Because now we will get better rate of interest in the safest country in the world for our money. So the moment the Federal Reserve rises or increases the rate of interest, investors around the world rush to withdraw their money from other countries. Like whoever has invested money in Indian stock market, if he or she is a foreign investor especially, the moment they hear, oh, in America I'll get a higher rate of interest, that very moment they withdraw the money from the Indian market and they go and invest the same in America. Similarly, on the other hand, the moment the Federal Reserve says, oh, we are reducing our rate of interest, that means it is not attractive anymore, or it is not very feasible anymore to invest your money in America. That means money will come out of America and will go towards developing countries such as India. So this is the connection between what the American Federal Reserve decides and how much money, especially for an investment, do we have in our market. This is a big problem. And again, the problem is not just with the stock market increasing or decreasing. The other problem is that when foreign currency, such as dollar specifically, when there is a rush of dollar leaving your market, that means your Indian currency will depreciate. How is it that Indian rupee is pegged against the dollar? Means how do we decide that for $1 we have 80 rupees or 70 rupees or 60 rupees or 100 rupees? How is it decided? It is simply decided by the amount of dollars that are present in our market. If most of the dollars go out of India's market, the rupee will depreciate suddenly. Rupee will lose its value. You will have to now spend much more rupees just to buy $1. On the other hand, when there is an increase in the supply of dollar in the market, when the dollars are increasing in the Indian market, you will have it easier to buy dollar, so the rupee will start to appreciate. This is why you will see when the rupee is declining, when there is a high depreciation in rupee, you will see what the RBI does. RBI starts selling dollars in the market because RBI wants to increase the dollar supply in the market. And when they want the rupee to become slightly weaker, they will start buying dollar from the market. So RBI does that as well. Now coming back to what Federal Reserve does and what happens. So when a rate cut is announced by Federal Reserve, that means it is not very attractive to invest in America anymore because you will not get a high rate of interest. Means investors now in that case will rush to invest in attractive markets such as India. So what is more beneficial for India in terms of attracting investment? For us, it is beneficial if the American Federal Reserve cuts the rate. When they cut the rate, that means investors will find alternative opportunities or will have to find alternative opportunities such as India, and they bring their money to India. Alternatively, if there is a situation wherein Federal Reserve increases the rate or pushes the rate up, the result will be that the money will come out of India, will come out of China, and will go to America. There is also an impact on currency, as I told you, because it is a function of how much foreign currency do we have in the country. That is why you will see that RBI releases data about the forex reserves that it has. That is foreign exchange reserves that RBI has. Now, RBI maintains significant forex reserves in India. They keep changing it. The data is released by RBI every week. So if you go to RBI website, every week you will see how much forex reserve do they have. If you take an average number, for example, on average, let's say the recently released data, RBI had about $650 billion of forex reserve. Now this keeps on changing. Why does it keep changing? Because as I said, when the RBI feels that rupee is becoming much weaker and we have to stabilize the rupee, RBI will start selling some dollars in the market. Dollars are sold in the market so that we can stabilize the rupee. On the other hand, if we imagine a situation where we have to make the rupee weaker for some cases, we might have a situation where the RBI will actually start buying dollar from the market. This is where the situation lies. And that is how it is decided what will be the forex reserves of RBI. So again, as I said, not every country's federal bank or not every country's central bank, when the results or when their policy rates change, will have an impact on other countries. In most of the countries, including India, when RBI changes something, it doesn't have an impact outside India, because why would it have an impact? But America's case is different. Because it is their money, because it is their market that is investing money in other parts of the country, and because America is considered as the safest economy in the world in terms of money, because we have a situation where the investor would want to take money back to America, because of all these cases, the Federal Reserve takes a certain decision, it has a big impact. The same impact is not seen in other countries such as India. Now, as I said, there are significant implications of what Federal Reserve does. First, if the rate hikes, means if the Federal Reserve has increased the rate, what will happen? As I told you, it will become more attractive to invest in America. It's safe anyway, so people will take the money out from emerging markets such as India and they will take their money into America. The result will be they will lead to currency depreciation, and in India's case, in order to bring the money back, if we have to bring the money back, we have to make it more attractive for people to come and invest in India. So the result will be that we will have to forcefully increase our bond rates. We have to increase our bond yields, means we'll have to make it more attractive for others to come back, and so that this money can actually be invested back into the country. This is the impact of rate hike, because the money will go out of the country. Again, in the UPSC examination, the past few years, if you look at the pattern of the examination, the pattern is not about asking exact data. They will not ask what the exact data is. They will not ask what exactly is the foreign exchange or forex with RBI. Rather, what they ask is implication of decisions. So they will most probably ask you what happens in the Indian market if Federal Reserve increases the rate or decreases the rate. That is more important. They will not ask you what exactly is the exchange rate of rupee. They will not ask you how much forex reserve does RBI have right now. It is more important to understand the implications of it. Implications as in what will happen if the policy rate increases, what will happen if the policy rate decreases, what will happen if an RBI takes a certain decision, so on and so forth. That is how the questions will usually be asked. There is also a term that you would have seen in the news quite a lot, that is called federal tapering. What is federal tapering? This is a term again with respect to America, because it is their Federal Reserve. So what happens is, if in America the Federal Reserve wants to put more money in the market, just like in India, they also try and control inflation. They put a lot of money into the market by different methods. They make it easier for people to take a loan. They make it easier for people to buy stuff. when they reduce this, means reduction or cutting down of expansionary policies, that is called tapering. So federal tapering is a situation wherein the money that is flown in the market by the Federal Reserve, that money is now going back, or that expansionist policy is reducing slightly. So when the RBI, when the Federal Reserve reduces the expansionist policy in a gradual manner, that is considered as federal tapering. It is intended to withdraw some of the economic stimulus that the government or the banks had been giving earlier. Now, in a country like America, economic stimulus, you might think, why do they need to give a stimulus? They are themselves a very strong country, but that is not how it works. Governments around the world may want to give certain stimulus, may want to give certain money in the hands of the people to get the economy running. For example, when the COVID-19 pandemic was happening, the American government decided to distribute free checks to their citizens. Everyone, every family was given $1,500 check from the side of the government of America. That's an example of economic stimulus. When the government invests a lot of money in the market, when the government, for example, invests money, spends money to build infrastructure so that money can go in the hands of the people, they will find jobs, they will then spend that money. That is all a part of what you call as economic stimulus. When that stimulus is taken back gradually, when the money that is being invested from the RBI side, from the Federal Reserve side, is taken back gradually, that is a situation called as federal tapering. This is a term that you might see asked in the UPSC examination as well. Now, what is the relationship between unemployment and inflation? This is a very simple thing to understand. Unemployment and inflation usually have an inverse correlation. Because imagine this situation. Unemployment low means most of the people have jobs. When most people have jobs means most people have money in their hand. So when most of the people have money in their hand, that means that they will be able to buy stuff. When all of them are able to buy stuff, that will lead to inflation. So it's a very simple step-by-step argument if you actually think about it. If unemployment is low, means many more people have money in their hands, means companies are paying them well, they will buy more stuff and inflation will automatically go up. On the other hand, opposite is also true. When there is high unemployment, the situation will be that most of the people don't have money in their hand. When they don't have money in their hand, the result will be that they will not be able to buy stuff. And if they are not able to buy stuff, inflation will automatically come down. Because that is what RBI does, right? In order for RBI to control inflation, what do? They try and cut off money from the hands of the people, and this is what will happen if unemployment is high. So unemployment high means inflation low. Unemployment low means inflation high. So in usual cases, there will always be an inverse relationship between the two. Please remember this. This is a very, very commonly asked fact. There is an inflation or there is an inverse relationship between the two. Now, there is a graph, there is a curve rather, that shows the relationship between unemployment and inflation. That curve is called as a Phillips curve. It is important. These kind of curves, laws, these are very commonly asked in the prelims examination. So the question can be, the Phillips curve indicates a relationship between what? So Phillips curve indicates a relationship between unemployment and inflation. It simply says, in case of high unemployment, there will be low inflation. In case of low unemployment, there will be high inflation. As simple as that. This is how the Phillips curve basically tells us. This is how it looks like. If you see, this is how the Phillips curve is. Inflation, when it goes high, unemployment will go low, and vice versa. Now again, this is what usually happens. Please understand, a lot of economics, a lot of economic laws, etc. that we study are a lot of assumptions made by the economist. Sitting in a room, you can only make assumptions that if we do this, this will happen. If we do that, that will happen. But it is not always true that it will be translated on the ground. Maybe the same does not get translated on the ground because all the rules may just take a backseat in real life. So it does happen. It may happen that we may not have this exact situation. What is that called? That is a very, very, very dangerous situation for the economy, which is called as stagflation. Stagflation is very rare, but it is extremely, extremely dangerous for an economy. Stagflation is a situation where there is high unemployment, and there is no economic growth, or there is high unemployment and high inflation as well. That is considered as stagflation. Again, usually the law is, or usually you would assume that if unemployment is high, people don't have money in their hand, inflation will come down. But there may be some exceptional situations under which unemployment and economic growth, both of those go in the same direction. We may have a situation unemployment is high, inflation is also high. That is a very, very dangerous situation for the country, which is called as stagflation. That doesn't happen usually, but if it does happen, it's a very dangerous situation because it's difficult for a country to come out of it. There have been some cases of stagflation. Usually it happens because increase in prices is not in your hand. For example, there have been situations where oil producing countries around the world have come together and they have artificially increased the prices of oil for everyone. That is called as the oil shock. OPEC, as you know, is a group of countries that produce most of the oil around the world. They export most of the oil. The Organization of Oil Exporting Countries or Oil Producing Countries. Now, this particular group, for example, has increased prices automatically just because they formed a cartel and they forcefully said that we will sell oil at a higher price. Now, oil is a commodity that everyone requires. Some require it more, some require it less, but everyone requires it. And when you are importing oil at a higher price, it will automatically have an inflationary effect in your country. And because of high inflation, you might have a situation where the companies are letting go of people. The companies might say that I now have to pay so much more cost for importing oil, let me just throw some people out of the job. That is a situation where there can be high unemployment and high inflation as well. That brings us to a situation of stagflation, which is again very, very, very dangerous for any economy because there is not much that you can do in such a scenario. In this case, it's difficult for you to come out of it. And the problem is, in most of the cases where the inflation is because of foreign arguments or because of a foreign commodity such as oil, you can't really control it. If, for example, India that buys 85% of its crude oil from outside India has to pay a higher price for oil, automatically every single commodity in the country will become more expensive. The government can't really do much about that because oil is used to transport everything. So when oil becomes costly, everything will become costlier. There may be a situation of high unemployment and high growth or high situation or high unemployment and high inflation as well. And both of these, when they work together, are a very dangerous situation. But again, as I said, there are few examples of this around the world. Mostly these are because of external factors, nothing that you can do. And that is why you will see countries around the world have been trying to be self-sufficient in terms of oil. On that note, let me ask you an interesting question here, which I hope that you will research about and tell me the answer in the comment section. Let this be your homework for the day. There's a very interesting case study of America. Now, America just a few years back was the largest importer of oil in the world. And then they had the shale gas boom. They discovered a lot of oil deposits within their own country. Now we have a situation where America still imports a lot of oil, but America still exports a lot of oil as well. Understand this conundrum that I'm talking about. America in a situation like this today exports a lot of oil, but they still import a lot of oil. How is that possible? Think about it. Research if you know what the answer is and tell me in the comment section. How is it possible that a country like America that is now producing the most amount of oil, still they are importing oil and they are exporting oil as well? If you have your own oil, why not use it yourself? Why is it that you are exporting your oil and you are importing someone else's oil? Is there a problem in the middle? Is there a price gap? What exactly happens here? It's an interesting situation. Do search about this and let me know your answer in the comment section. We will discuss it tomorrow if you have not found the answer. Now, on that note, let's see if you are first able to answer a few questions. Let's see if you understood how the Federal Reserve and its policy changes the things in India. I do see some answers coming in the chat about oil. We will discuss this in detail. Maybe tomorrow, what happens, why is it that a country is importing and exporting oil, both of them. Till that time, let's look at this question. Again, we'll do the same thing. I would request you to read this question very carefully. Maybe take a pause on this screen. Think about what the answer is, write it down in your note, and you can replay it again and we'll discuss this. All right. The question is, with reference to the effects of US Federal Reserve's policy rate changes, consider the following statements. So what happens when the US Federal Reserve changes the policy rates? We had discussed this. First, a hike in the US Federal's policy rate generally results in depreciation of the Indian rupee against the US dollar. Now think about what we discussed. When the US Federal Reserve increases the interest rate, means it is more attractive for any investor to now invest their money in America. So what will they do? They will take out all the dollars they have invested in the Indian market, they will take it back to America. The result is, if dollars are going out of our country, our rupee will start to depreciate. So first is absolutely correct. It results in depreciation of our currency against the US dollar because the US Federal Reserve has increased its rate and it has become more attractive to invest in America. Simple. Second, Federal Reserve or Fed rates hikes may lead to capital outflow from emerging countries due to narrowing rate interest differentials. The same thing that I just discussed. America anyways is the safest country to invest because there is an assurance that the money will not go away. The government in a worst case can still print dollars, so everyone wants to go and invest there. That is why if there is any hike in the rate, if the Federal Reserve says that we are increasing the rate, it becomes more attractive for people around the world, for investors around the world to go and invest in America. So that leads to capital outflows from emerging countries like India. Absolutely correct. Because of narrowing interest rate differential. Narrowing interest rate differential means, let's say in India, investing in a government security might give you 6% rate of interest. Earlier, America was giving only 3% rate of interest. So that is why investors chose India. But if they, let's say, increase it to 5%, so the difference between the two is decreasing. It's still that India is still offering a higher rate of interest, but because the difference is decreasing, the differential is decreasing, that is why investors would want for a safer investment and would go back to America. So that does happen. You might have seen this. Whenever there is a big stock market crash in India, the first headline that you will always see in the news is that we are seeing a lot of FPI outflows. It's a very commonly used phrase that we are witnessing FPI outflows because of which the stock market is declining. It's a very common thing. FPI outflows against means that foreign investors who have money in the Indian market, Indian stock market, they are withdrawing money because FPI investment basically comes in a stock market. They are withdrawing money because it has become more profitable for them to invest back in America. So that again is something that does happen. American securities or American bonds can never have a higher rate of interest than India because they don't need to. They are much more secure. But if the interest difference or differential decreases enough for an investor to take a call that, okay, my money is safer in America, I might as well go and invest there, that is enough for them to take the money out. Federal rate cuts are always inflationary on global economy. Now, before I dive deep into the third statement, let me give you a simple hint here while solving a question. When you're solving prelims questions, please make sure to identify the terms that are extreme. There are certain terms that are extreme in nature. Extreme means always, all, never, none, only. All these are extreme terms. So what their usage means that there is no exception at all. So when they say that they will always have an inflationary effect, that means there is not even one exception, even if there is a single % chance that it might not happen, that turns out to be false. So in most of the cases, again, I'm not saying it happens in all the cases, but in most of the cases, usage of these extreme terms would mean that the statement is wrong. Because all you need is one exception in this case. For example, if I say that I always wake up at 6 a.m., imagine a situation. Even if there is one single day in my life where I woke up at 5 past 6, at 6 a.m. 5 minutes, that statement is false. Because when I say the word always, I mean to say there is no exception at all, which is usually false. There will always be at least one or two exceptions. So again, the question is, federal rate cuts are always inflationary on the global economy, means they will always lead to inflation. That is not always true. It depends. See, inflation depends on a lot of other factors in the market. Like in India's case, for example, inflation depends a lot more on the supply of money in the market, not the supply of foreign currency. Foreign currency may increase, may decrease, but that may not have a direct impact on inflation. That has got to do much more with the Indian currency, Indian note. So it doesn't always have an inflationary effect because it depends on many other factors. So the answer would be 1 and 2 are correct. B would be the correct answer to go ahead with here. Slightly tricky, but again, if you read it carefully, not that difficult to answer. If you want, you can take a screenshot here for future reference. Moving on to the next one. Let's see if you can answer this one correctly. Again, think about it. Read the question carefully. Maybe take a pause on the screen. Think about it. Write the answer in the sheet of paper that you would have. Once you have done that, replay it again and let's see. So the question is, which of the following are likely consequences for India if US Federal Reserve engages in aggressive tightening cycle? Means if they repeatedly rise their interest rate, repeatedly increase the interest rate. Now, as I told you once again, the question that you will see in the UPSC examination will mostly be on these lines. They will not ask you specific data-based question. So, for example, they will not ask you what is the interest rate in Federal Reserve right now. They will not ask you what exactly is the CRR in India, what exactly is the repo rate in India right now. These questions are not asked. The question will be, if RBI increases CRR or cash reserve ratio, what will be the impact on the market? If we increase the SLR, what will be the impact in the market? So it's about action and its consequences. Those kind of questions are asked. We very rarely see a specific data-based question. So focus more on these. On that note, let's see. So they're asking you what are the likely consequences if the interest rate is hiked by the Federal Reserve. First, increase in India's import bill due to a weakening rupee. We discussed this. Hike in the Federal Reserve means dollar going out of the country, rupee's value will depreciate. That means now if we have to import stuff, we have to pay a lot more. Let's take this example. Earlier, if $1 could be bought in 70 rupees, we could buy stuff worth $100 just by paying equivalent of 7,000 rupees. Now that $1 can be bought for 90 rupees, we have to pay 9,000 rupees for the same thing. So our import bill will automatically increase. Yes. High external commercial borrowing costs for Indian corporates, again the same thing. The Indian corporates would have to take money from outside. If they are, let's say, taking money in the form of dollar, they'll have to pay much more rupee or many more rupees in return for that. Widening current account deficit, again same, this will happen. Current account deficit is the difference between your import and your export. Because we have to import or we have to spend a lot more money while importing, it will lead to a much widening current account deficit. Rise in net capital inflow. No. Why would the capital inflow here? We have discussed time and time again. If the Federal Reserve increases the rate, it becomes more attractive to invest in America. So take out money from India, go and send it to America. So it's not something that will result in net increase in inflow. Rather, it will increase the outflow. The opposite will be true. So 1, 2 and 3, A would be the appropriate answer in this case. Hoping that you got this one right. That's how you can explain it. If you want, feel free to take the screenshot from here. Now I have a related previous year question from this, not exactly from Federal Reserve, but let's see if it's a related question, you can answer that or not. Which among the following steps is most likely to be taken at the time of economic recession? Now, what is recession? Recession is a situation where your economy is declining, your economy is contracting, means GDP is actually declining. If in the last year, let's say India produced 100 crore rupees of stuff, now this year we produce less than 100 crore rupees, that is the situation of recession. So if recession happens, what will the government do? See, when the recession happens, the general idea is there will not be much jobs, people will not have much money in the market. Because people don't have much money in their hand, that is why they are not buying a lot of stuff. That leads to recession. The worst thing for any economy or any government is when people are not buying stuff. That also is an indication of a pessimistic point of view. When you are pessimistic, because when you are not sure if I will get my job or if I will maintain my job next month, if you are not sure if I will get my salary next month or not, you will not spend any money. This is why the situation of recession occurs. So what does the government do in such a case? Number one, cut in tax rates accompanied by increase in interest rates. Something like this, when you cut the tax rate, that means lesser money comes in the hands of the government, but the prices may reduce, but increase the interest rate, not really. If you increase the interest rate, that means it will be difficult for the people to get money in the hands. Government, in the case of recession, essentially wants to put money in the hands of the people, want the people to have more money in their hands so that they can start spending that money. Increase in expenditure on public projects. This is what the government usually does. Means when you increase the expenditure on public projects, for example, let's say Manrega, or let's say you're building something, the government builds a lot more highways and bridges, etc. That means government will get more people on the job, pay them salary, so that eventually that money can inflow in the market. So the government expands its expenditure on public projects, government expands its spending, builds more stuff, keep more people, hire more people. That is what the government usually does in case of a recession. So most likely this is the one that is supposed to happen. Okay. I hope you got this one right. Let's move on to the next topic then. The next topic is P notes or participatory notes. Extremely interesting, not just for the examination point of view, but generally from economy point of view and the news that you read. P notes or participatory notes are very interesting way of how money comes into the country. Now try and understand how is it that money comes into the country. If someone, let's say if an American company or American individual wants to invest in India, what options do they have? So generally, there are a few ways in which you can bring your money into India. First, if you want to, let's say, take a part ownership in certain companies, this is called FDI. So let's take this example. Most of the insurance companies in India, for example, are a combination of two or more companies. There is Bajaj Allianz. Bajaj is an Indian company, Allianz is a foreign company. They joined the hands and they started a company called Bajaj Allianz. Tata AIG. Tata is an Indian company, AIG is an American company. They got together, offered Tata AIG. Max Bupa Life Insurance, you would have heard of. Max a separate company, Bupa is a separate company, came together, started this company. So these companies come with their capital in India, invest in Indian ventures, take part ownership of that. That is called FDI, foreign direct investment. That is one way to do it. But in that case, you have to bring a significant amount of money. You have to bring in money which takes or which gives you certain amount of ownership or stakes in an organization. The second way is if you first of all don't want to put so much capital. If you want to put some slight amount of capital in the Indian stock market, like you usually, for example, in India, as a citizen, you can buy shares in the stock market. You can buy shares of listed companies. Let's say a foreigner comes to India and thinks I also want to buy shares in the Indian stock market. How would they do that? For a foreigner to come, bring their money and buy shares in the Indian market, invest in India, they have to register with SEBI. They have to register with SEBI. Now, registering with SEBI is a slight problem for them. Why? Too much paperwork, too much regulations, and maybe this rich person sitting in America who wants to invest 100 crore rupees in India does not want to disclose his identity. It may happen, right? This rich person in America wants to invest in Indian stock market, but does not want to do it openly, does not want everyone to know that, see, I bought so much stakes, I bought so many shares in the Indian stock market. So what do? This is where there is an interesting option called participatory notes or P notes. How does it work? Let's try and understand. This is where a new entity comes in called FPI, Foreign Portfolio Investor. Now let's imagine this situation. Let's say this rich person in America this rich person in America, Mr. Jones, again I just used the first word that came to our mind. Let's say Mr. Jones wants to invest 100 crore rupees in India. Okay. But for that, SEBI tells him, first come to me, file this paperwork, bring me Aadhaar, bring me PAN card, bring me your PAN documents, give me your 12th mark sheet, 10th mark sheet, give a letter from your father, everything is fine. Only then I will allow you. Because of all that paper, Mr. Jones think, oh, not worth it. Why would I spend so much time and regulatory issues just to invest in Indian stock market? So what does he do? He contacts an organization which is called as FPI. FPI comes in the picture. Now what is FPI? FPI are these big financial institutions such as, I'll give you an example, let's say Citibank. It's a famous American bank, let's say Citibank. So FPI, Citibank, they will tell Mr. Jones, don't worry, you give me your money. I have already registered with SEBI. So they have registered with SEBI, that is Security and Exchange Board of India, that regulates our stocks. They say, I am SEBI registered, you don't have to worry, your money is safe with me. So you give me the money. On your behalf, I will invest the money in India's stock market. I will invest money in India's stock market. It will be your money. Whenever you say, I will withdraw it for you. Whenever you want, I'll invest it for you. I will make sure that you make a good profit also. You just pay me a percentage of it. This is something that I will do for you. In return, I will issue you a kind of a certificate as a proof, as a receipt that, see, I have taken your money. This is called P note, promissory note. So FPIs issue a note or a certificate kind of a thing to the investor that, see, I am giving you this as a proof that yes, this is your money with me. This is how promissory notes work. This is how FPI works. So what happens? In most cases in India, we will not know the identity of Mr. Jones. No one will know who this person is. The only thing we know is money is coming from Citibank. They are the ones who are investing money. We will not know from whom Citibank has taken the money. So it's a problem with P notes or this kind of a system wherein there is a high chance of illegal money entering your market. There is a high chance of money laundering. It does happen. But it is attractive for a country because this way you have a lot of foreign investors coming in. It reduces the regulatory framework. It basically gives you a chance to invest money without having to go ahead with all this paperwork and registering with SEBI, etc. So it's a win-win situation for both. This is how the P notes work. Okay, I hope you understood this much. So when you see stock market news and say FPI outflows have happened, FPI have withdrawn the money. So this is the FPI. This is the Citibank. They are withdrawing this money because they tell Mr. Jones that, bro, I think now your money will be much better safeguarded in China. So let's take your money and invest in China. Or let's take your money, invest in Vietnam or Pakistan, whatever. But this is what they do. This is what FPI does. They are the ones who are registered with SEBI. We would not know the real identity of this. So the real source of money in most cases is not known. Now, this is the basic idea of P notes. Now, why is it in the news? Why are we discussing all this detail? The reason why it is in the news is that the government of India has decided that all those foreign portfolio investors domiciled in the GIFT International Financial Service Center. So GIFT City, if you know, in Gujarat, the government has basically built very impressive infrastructure in a place called the GIFT City specifically to invite and attract foreign investors. So FPIs who are domiciled, who are basically there in the GIFT City and registered with SEBI, have been allowed to issue participatory notes. So foreign portfolio investors who are domiciled here, so the government, what do they want? Government wants to attract more FPIs, more companies coming in. They want to tell them, why don't you set up your base in the GIFT City? It will be better for you. It will be better for us also. So they have been allowed to issue promissory notes or P note. That is why it is in the news. Earlier, and why is it in the news? What was the situation earlier? Before that, only banks registered with the GIFT City, that Citibank, for example, could issue these P notes. Now it is not just the banks. Even the foreign funds registered with SEBI and operating from the GIFT City also have been allowed. So why? Because number one, the government wants more FPI coming in. So we want to relax our norms. We want to make sure it's easier to invest in India. Secondly, we also want to have more investment and more companies registering themselves in the GIFT, that is a GIFT city. For both of these, Indian government is trying to now make it easier for you to issue P notes or promissory notes. Now again, P notes are not always helpful because as I said, they are volatile in nature. The moment Citibank thinks, for example, in the earlier example that we took, the moment Citibank thinks that my client's money will give me better rate of interest in some other country, they will not think twice before withdrawing the money. Their loyalty is not towards the country, their loyalty is towards their client. They just want to increase their money or the client's money. They are not concerned with whether Indian stock market would crash, or they're not concerned with the impact on the Indian stock market. That is how, or that is why this P note thing is not an ideal situation for a country. FPI investment was not a very ideal situation for a country to depend on. The P notes were introduced in the year 2000, not very old, by SEBI specifically. And again, they are specifically issued so that we can invest more, or we can attract more investment to the country without having the need to put in all the regulations, without forcing them to do all the paperwork. Registered foreign institutional investors, they are the ones who issue P notes to overseas investors. The example of Citibank I gave you, Deutsche Bank is also an example. They are the ones that usually, remember, these have to register with SEBI. It's not that they don't have to register. The investor whose money they are bringing in, they don't have to register, but they will have to register with SEBI eventually. These are the advantages and disadvantages of P notes. Again, something that can be asked very easily. Advantages, again, it's easy for someone to bring their money in, not many regulations involved. That can also turn into disadvantage, obviously, in certain cases. And it promises anonymity. You don't have to disclose your identity. It attracts more foreign investment. It gives you tax benefits as well because of anonymity. On the other hand, there are certain disadvantages. The biggest one, the lack of transparency. So these go hand in hand. Depends on what you actually interpret it as. You might call it anonymity, or you might call it lack of transparency. It's both the same thing. There are allegations that it gives a chance for these investors to funnel their black money into the Indian market. That is also a big problem, the regulatory challenges. And again, the market is volatile because of them, because it's not just a small amount of money. Millions and billions of dollars in certain cases are invested in our stock market at any point of time by the FPIs. And the moment they think that it's better to withdraw the money from the market, they will do so without any second thought. Having said that, it's not that there are no regulations in place. There are certain regulations that SEBI has put on P notes as well, because we can't just allow it to be openly dealt in whatever way that the FPIs want. There are certain regulations. For example, the SEBI wants the FPIs to do their KYC, means they should know what their money is coming from, who the customer is. Also, only registered foreign institutional investors can issue P notes with their KYC, as I told you earlier. Apart from this, any institutional investor must report any transaction involving P notes within 30 days at the end of month. So, within 30 days at the end of the month, they have to report to SEBI how much money have they invested. They don't have to tell SEBI from where the money came from, but they have to maintain a record with themselves. So they have to do the KYC. KYC is, for example, when you go to a bank or any such institution, they ask for a lot of documents, Aadhaar, PAN card, so that they can ascertain your identity. That is called KYC. So they have to do that. They have to maintain a record of the people from where the money is coming in. And then they have to inform SEBI how much money are they investing. 2019, the SEBI tightened this law even further by saying that the issuers have to collect additional information as well from the owners. See, the problem is you have to maintain a balance here. The moment you make it too strict, if you actually make it too strict for the investors, it will be difficult for the investors to put in the money. Just give me a moment. So either you make it flexible, or on the other hand, you play to the safety and security of a country, but there has to be a balance maintained between the two. This is not an easy task, but this is what the SEBI has to do, to maintain a balance between security and safety of the country and make it flexible and easier for the investors to bring the money in. Let's see if you understood this topic, which will only be proven if you are able to answer these questions. I'll take a side once again, give you enough time, read this question carefully and then pause on the screen and think about the answer. Done? With reference to participatory notes or P notes, consider the following statement. Number one, P notes are issued only to foreign portfolio investors who are registered with SEBI. Yes, that is what we discussed. You have to be registered with SEBI. You have to be a foreign portfolio investor in order to get the P note issued. P notes allow foreign investors to invest in Indian securities without being directly registered with the SEBI. Yes. The word securities basically means stocks and mutual funds, shares. That is what they're talking about. So don't be confused with the word securities here. These are basically listed items in the stock market. P notes are legally prohibited in India? No. If that would have been the case, he would not have been reading this topic. They are not legally prohibited in India. SEBI allows it, they have regulated it, but it is not prohibited by any stretch of imagination. So, out of the three statements, two of these are correct. The answer would be B. Not very difficult. If you want, this is the explanation. You can take a screenshot from here if you wish to. One more. Consider the following implications of excessive use of P notes in the Indian capital market. Again, I'll give you enough time. Read this carefully, then maybe pause on this screen and decide what your answer is. Alright, you can play now. It can lead to increased volatility in equity market due to short-term speculative flows. We did discuss this is a problem or a feature of P notes. When a lot of money comes from FPIs, which have issued P notes, they have the ability to withdraw the money because there is no restriction to put the money or keep the money in the stock market for a specific time period. There is no restriction from the side of the government as such. You can withdraw the money tomorrow, you can withdraw the money after a few days. If you have put the money in the form of FDI, foreign direct investment, when you have taken ownership or a part ownership of certain companies, then there are certain restrictions. You can't withdraw the money overnight. But in case of investment in the stock market like FPI or P notes, there is no restriction as such. That makes this investment extremely flexible and very volatile for the market. It complicates the enforcement of anti-money laundering and know your customer norms. Yes, as I said, there are allegations which are true to a certain extent that it provides ways to launder money because you don't know the exact source of the money coming in. That's a big headache, that's a big problem that has not been solved. It improves transparency? No, it doesn't improve transparency. In fact, second and third are contradictory to each other. If you actually see, it does not improve transparency. Fourth, it may mask the ultimate beneficial ownership behind large investment in sensitive sectors. Yes, that is a big problem. So, you never know where the money is coming from. For example, we would not want a lot of money coming in from China, especially into, let's take an example. Let's say Indian Defence, let's say HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. They are very crucial for India. They are the ones responsible for making Tejas. Now, they are listed in the stock market. Now, let's say in HAL, a lot of money is coming in from outside suddenly. And that money basically is coming in from China because you don't know the source of the money. It is coming through FPIs. You would not want this to be an ideal situation. We would not want a big chunk of ownership of HAL through the listed stock actually goes into the hands of Chinese people. So this is where it has certain concerns. Now, it is not possible for you to own a large part of country or large part of company because of this. Number one, there is a small portion of the companies that are listed, small portion of their stocks are listed. Also, if FPI starts holding over 10% ownership of any company, please understand, if a FPI starts owning over 10% ownership of a company, it automatically translates to FDI. That will have certain restrictions and you will have to then disclose your identity. So there are certain restrictions in place, but yes, it's difficult to know the ultimate beneficiary. That is correct. So 1, 2 and 4 is correct in this case. A will be the answer. A will be the answer here. I hope you got this one right. If you want, you can take a screenshot here if that helps you out. A related previous year question. Let's see if you are able to answer this. Convertibility of rupee implies what? Being able to convert rupee notes into gold, not really, because that anyways is allowed, there is no compulsion on that. Allowing the value of rupee to be fixed by the market forces, that is also not convertibility of rupee, that is this free market economy. Freely permitting conversion of rupee to another currencies and vice versa, that is what convertibility of rupee. So there are certain restrictions in place about how much can you convert at one point of time. For example, the government of India does not allow full capital account convertibility. So if you have a lot of money invested into India, you can't all of a sudden just convert that and leave the country, because that will be detrimental to our Indian society. So capital account convertibility means the money that you have in the form of loan, FDI, etc. There is partial convertibility allowed here, not complete or not full current account convertibility. Just in context to this, see, when an investor comes into your country, an investor ideally would want a situation where his or her money is freely available. Whenever they want to take it out, they should be allowed to take out. So an ideal situation for an investor where you would want to attract investors, you would allow complete convertibility, 100% convertibility, even in case of capital account. Then more investors will come in. However, this is a big mistake. It's a big mistake that we saw in 1980s and 1990s. If you go back a bit in history, 1980s, 1990s was a time when the South Asian economies, called as the Asian Tigers, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, they were growing at a very, very, very fast pace. The reason why they were growing at a very fast pace, especially Thailand and Indonesia, etc., was that they allowed full capital account convertibility. So investors were given this assurance that bring your money into our country. The moment you want to take out the money, you are free to go. You don't have to worry. Because they imagine that nothing like this will happen. The investors will not take the money out automatically. However, in the 1990s, the end of 1990s, there were some issues starting with some iron and steel industry in Thailand. That led to the investors declining, or investors' confidence declining in these economies. And within a few days, billions and billions of dollars of investment left those countries. That was possible because they offered 100% capital account convertibility. That led to a huge crisis in these countries like Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, etc. That is a lesson that many countries, including India, have also learned. We do not allow 100% capital account convertibility. Means you cannot overnight convert your money from India and take it outside. If you have invested in FDI, loans, etc., there is partial convertibility allowed, and after that there is a time period bound after which you can withdraw the money. This is again done to safeguard a country's economy, safeguard a country's market. So this is how it basically works. Answer here is C. The next topic that we have is, you can argue it's a kind of a continuation of what we were discussing, FPI and FDI. RBI's framework for reclassification of FDI or FPI to FDI. Now, again, there are two types of investments as we discussed. FDI, foreign direct investment, where you take a bit of ownership of the company, you invest a significant amount of money in the country. And there is FPI, foreign portfolio investment. It's more of a short-term investment that comes mainly in the listed securities, stock market, mutual funds, etc. For a country, let's say from India's point of view, for us an ideal situation will be more money coming in the form of FDI, foreign direct investment, because FDI, foreign direct investment, is much more stable. It's a long-term investment. It shows a commitment of the investor as well. We know that the investor is not going to run away overnight. So that is a better situation for us. So we also hope that more and more money goes in the form of FDI. After a certain point of time, if the FPI investment coming in, the portfolio investment coming in, is above a certain level, the example of HAL that I gave you, if you are buying a lot of stocks of HAL from the stock market, the company deserves to know what your identity is. Rather, everyone deserves to know what your identity is, because you are taking a part ownership of that company. So beyond a certain level, FPI gets converted into FDI. This is what RBI has now altered some of this is where RBI has altered some of the classifications. So RBI has introduced a new framework so that whoever wants to convert from FPI to FDI, what is it that they would have to do now? What are the norms that they would have to follow? It's an important news. FPI we discussed in detail in the last topic. FDI, foreign direct investment. It is an investment that you usually see for long-term ownership of the company. You will see foreign investors coming in. For example, you might have heard, let's say, you might have heard, for example, let's say that SoftBank has invested money, or SoftBank basically has brought in money into a company. That is an FDI. A lot of these startups, for example, get money from outside. All that is FDI basically coming in. That is a long-term investment that we see. Now, FDI again is better for the country because it's for the long term. It is not that volatile. It brings expertise as well, because when the foreign investors have a bigger ownership of the company or a bigger stake in the company, they bring their own expert, they bring their own expertise, because they want to stay for the long term. Also, it involves acquiring assets as well, factories, etc. That is why FDI. You will see every single year in economic survey, for example, the government of India releases a list of the countries from where we are getting most of the FDI. For example, if you see the list of FDIs coming into India, a lot of this money comes from the US, a lot of it comes from Singapore, for example. European country like Switzerland, etc. also do invest significant amount of money here. From France also, you might see this money coming in. All this is in the form of FDI. There are a lot of benefits that we have. It leads to a lot of jobs, investment, etc. would lead to expansion of the businesses. So good jobs, better tax collection for the government as well, economic development. Now, FDI usually is through two norms. So when a foreigner or a foreign company wants to bring this money into India, there are two ways in which it happens. One is automatic, one is government. Automatic route means up to a certain limit, you do not require the government's permission. For example, you might see, I'll give you a random example, let's say insurance sector. In this year's budget, the government of India has said that in the insurance sector, there can be 100% FDI now. That a foreign company can come in, they can own the company 100%, they can start working without collaborating with an Indian company. But let's say in some sectors, the government says that 74% FDI is allowed under automatic route, but up to 100% allowed under government approval. I'm just giving an example of what usually the FDI norms are. So what this means is that if you are taking ownership of a company, up to 74% ownership you can take without the government having to come in between. You can just buy the company by giving them money, giving the required amount of taxes. On the other hand, if you want to go beyond that, you can go up to 100%, you can buy the entire company. But in that case, if you go beyond 74%, the government approval will be required. So government will have to play a role here. That is usually how FDI works. What department of the government looks into it? The department of the government is called Department for Promotion of Industrial and Internal Trade, that is DPIIT. This is the department of the government that specifically looks into these requests. If a company requests that we want to invest into the country or we want to go beyond a certain percentage of ownership, it is this particular organization or this particular department of the government that will have to take the call on such matters. Now, as I said, there are many advantages of FDI. Lot of startups in India, many of them, most of them rather, have their growth because of the money that they have gotten from outside. And most of that has been in the form of FDI coming in. So you see so many companies boasting of expansionary plans because they've gotten all that money. Not just money, they have also gotten technology transfer as well. Because see, there are two ways. One, if you just invest money in the stock market, then you are not really concerned with the working of the company. But if you are an FDI investor, you have taken part ownership of the company, you would want the company to grow at a faster pace. So for that specifically, you also transfer technology, you bring them in touch with other key partners as well. This is where FDI is much better for any country. Now, this is the new framework that RBI has released. This is the important part from the examination point of view. What has RBI said now about the new framework? First, the RBI says if FPI's ownership in an Indian company goes above 10%, it can either reclassify this as FDI or sell the shares within 5 trading days. Understood? Pretty simple. The example that I gave you of HAL, if HAL Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is a company that is listed in the stock exchange, if a foreign investor through FPI has invested so much money in HAL that their ownership becomes over 10%, then there are two options that you have. Either you classify yourself as FDI now. Now, what do you mean by classifying yourself as FDI? The big difference in change of classification will be that now you have to openly, publicly come out and say that I am the one, this is my identity, I am the one who holds these shares. Because in that case, the company, the ownership of the company HAL deserves to know who is the person who is buying so many shares that we are going beyond 10%. So either you reclassify yourself as an HDI or FDI rather, so that it is known to everyone, or the other option you have is sell your stakes so much that your ownership comes down below 10%. And there's not a long time that you have 5 trading days. Trading days means the days on which the market is open. So Monday to Friday the market is open. Market is not open on festivals and on weekends. So on the 5 trading days, within that you will have to sell your stake at least so much that it comes below 10%. First, again it is important to remember all of these. Second important point in the framework, government approval. FPI would need the government approval, especially if they are coming from countries that share a border with India. Now this is again important. If FPIs are basically taking in money or investing money, especially from those countries that share a border with India, share a land border. Now share a border means Pakistan, Afghanistan. To be true, that entire thing is specifically towards one country, China. It's a very interesting case. You know, when you see the list of countries from where most of the FDI comes into India, Singapore usually always remains somewhere at the top, either first or second or third, but Singapore very often remains at the top. The fact of the matter is that most of the money that we actually get from Singapore, and everyone knows this is actually Chinese money being routed from China, goes to Singapore and then it comes to India. So a lot of Chinese money anyways comes to India from Singapore. So the problem is when you are making such a policy, you can't say that if money comes from China, government approval is required. You can't single out or point out a certain country because that will lead to a diplomatic issue. So rather than saying that you want a government to approve if money comes in from China, the government has opted for a more generic statement that if the investment is coming in from a country that shares a border with India, then government approval is required. Again, if you look at the list of countries that share a border with India, you don't expect much investment coming in from countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar anyways. You mainly are pointing towards China without saying it explicitly. That is what they need. Third, reclassification not permitted in sectors that are restricted by the government like gambling and real estate. Then Nidhi company, that is mutual fund benefit companies, etc. These are certain sectors that have been kept away from it. Again, sectors that are considered important, too important for the country, and we would not want any foreign interference there. Those have been kept away. You can't convert your ownership of FPI into FDI in these sectors. Next, company agreement. That means Indian company in which the FPI holds a share must agree to the reclassification to ensure that they comply with the FDI rules. So the company in which you have invested your money and you want to convert from FPI to FDI, that company also has to first agree. So the company does get this right to reject. They also have to agree. Maybe they are not in agreement with this. Maybe they don't want you to be a part owner to hold so much of the company's value. So they may also vote against it. Then custodian's role. FPI's custodian, that is the entity that is managing the investment like Citibank, etc., must stop further purchases in companies' shares until the reclassification is complete. So if this is an ongoing process, that is FPI is converting to FDI, until that is entirely complete, until that is concluded, the FPI, that is the bank in between mainly, would not continue to buy more shares. The share buying would stop, wait for the classification to happen, only then they would go ahead. These are the important pointers of the new framework that has been released by RBI about conversion from FPI to FDI. Again, this is important. Do make a note of these. These kind of questions are very, very, very regularly asked by the UPSC in the prelims examination. Now, the foreign portfolio investment, as I told you specifically, this is much more volatile, short term, mainly in the listed securities, stock market, mutual funds, etc. And they are mainly used by those who are looking for a quick return, or what you call as hedge funds. I hope you have heard this phrase, hedge fund. They are basically used by hedge fund. Now, what are hedge funds? Hedge funds are usually those organizations that invest your money in, I don't want to say dangerous, but in those markets where you have a possibility of earning a lot of profit, but you might have a possibility of losing your money as well. Basically, these are risky investments. These are not secured investments. So, for example, if you invest your money in, let's say, American stock market, that is not a risky investment. You know that the money will come back, you know that you'll have a decent performance because it's a very stable market. On the other hand, let's say you take your money and you put that in an emerging country, a developing country, or a new startup. Now, that startup has a possibility of doing very well. So, your money can go 10x or 100 times, and it also has a possibility of shutting down. So, your money can go burn to the ground as well. So, both the extremes are possible in such a situation. So, this is where the hedge funds, this is how the hedge funds operate. So, a lot of money in the FPI actually is the money from the hedge funds that actually comes in. So, this is also where it's not very beneficial for a country. No country would ideally want a lot of hedge fund money to be coming in, because that is very speculative, that can go out of the country very quickly, that can come in large numbers, etc. In India, FPI, as we discussed, regulated by SEBI. There is a certain investment limit as well. That is a 10% thing, can hold less than 10% of Indian company, and then after that they have to be reclassified as FDI. And as per the new framework, if they don't want that classification, if they still want to remain anonymous and they want to continue in the manner that they have been doing, they get 5 trading days within which they would have to reduce their ownership. These are the advantages of FPI, higher returns. These are advantages for FPI, not for the country. They get higher returns, diversify, they have flexibility, withdraw the money, withdraw the investment whenever they want. Again, these are advantages from the FPI point of view, not from the point of view of the government. Let's see if you can answer a few questions once again. Read this carefully, take a pause on the screen, and then think about the answer. You can play that again, and then we'll discuss what the answer is. Done? All right. With reference to RBI's framework for reclassification of FDI or FPI to FDI, consider the following statement. Number 1. An FPI investment is automatically reclassified as FDI once the investor shareholding crosses 10% of the paid up capital. Yes, that is what we have been discussing. 10% limit. Beyond that, if you go, you will become an FDI. The reclassification of FPI to FDI is retrospective and affects all the past transactions of investors in that company. No. Just because you have become an FDI now, it would not impact your past transactions. So, in the past, what ownership you had in the company, whether you sold at a certain price or you bought at a certain price, or who did you buy it from, all these past transactions will not be revealed. That's what has been done has been done. It is not, the reclassification is not retrospective in nature. The reclassification requires approval from investee company's board and is reported to the RBI by the concerned depository departments. Now, we discussed about this, whether or not the company's classification will happen. Now, the framework specifically does not say that the investor or the board will have to say yes. It just says that the company will have to say yes. There is no specific mention of the board. Yes, it should be reported to the RBI. The RBI reportal part is correct. The RBI has to be reported about it. But whether the company's board specifically has to sit, that has not been clarified. So, Third would also be wrong. Only one of this is correct. A would be the answer here. A would be the answer here. Only one of the three given statements here are correct. You can take a screenshot from here if you wish to, from here. Next, again, read this carefully, take a pause on the screen, and then note down whatever your answer is. Okay. Which of the following are regulatory implications of reclassification of an investment from FPI to FDI in India? So when the reclassification happens, what exactly happens? First, the investor becomes subject to sectoral caps and entry route restrictions under FDI policy. Yes, when you become an FDI, then you have to abide by rules and regulation of FDI. That is, if there's a limit on FDI, as we discussed, in different sectors there are different limits. Defense, there will be a different limit. For insurance, for retail, for e-commerce, there will be different limits for different sectors about how much investment can come in. Now that you are an FDI, you have to abide by those limits. Second, the investment must comply with pricing guidelines applicable to FDI, even if it made through the stock market. Yes. So pricing guideline means at what price can you buy the share, at what price can you buy the ownership of the company. That again will be applicable to them as well. The investor is allowed to subsequently dilute the holding below 10%, continue to be classified as FPI. Yes, we did discuss that. How much time do they get? 5 trading days. So within 5 trading days, again, don't write working days because that's not the language that is used. Trading day, and don't write 5 days, that is different. 5 trading days basically means on the day that the market is open. Within 5 trading days, they can sell their ownership and they can reduce it to below 10%. They will still remain as FPI only. Post reclassification, the investor becomes eligible for all benefits accorded. No. Again, as I told you in the last question as well, last topic that we were discussing, when you have these extreme words, all, always, never, these are usually not true. They are not automatically eligible for all the benefits to the strategic FDI investors. Strategic FDI investors basically are for certain sectors specifically chosen by the government, where the government wants better technology coming in, where the government wants better investment, better ownership, etc. So not all the benefits that are given to strategic FDI investors would automatically be made available to you. It depends on the government which benefits are available to you. So out of the 4 statements, the first 3 are correct, 1, 2 and 3. A would be the correct answer here. A is the answer here. 1, 2 and 3 here are correct. Okay, 1, 2 and 3 are correct. The 4th one here is wrong. I have a related previous year question for you. Let's see if you can answer this one. It's a related question that was asked in 2011. Again, I'm giving you space. You can read it. Take a pause on the screen. Think about what your answer should be, and then you can move. Done? There's spacing issue. C option starts from here. Just a second. Slightly spacing issue. C option starts from here. So A, B, C, and D. Okay. Done? Both foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investors are related to investment in a country. Which of the following statements best represents an important difference between the two? So FII and FDI, what is the main difference between the two? First, FII brings better management skills and technology, FDI only brings capital. No. Foreign institutional investor basically is the same as FPI. So foreign institutional investor is giving money to FPI to bring money into India. So it is the person or the investor who is actually bringing in money through FPI. FII helps in increasing capital availability in general, but FDI only targets specific sector. That is correct. So FDI is specifically for certain sectors. That is, as we discussed, it's a sector-wise distribution The government allows FDI in certain sectors, the government does not allow or restricts FDI in certain sectors, depends upon the government's policy from time to time. Rather, on the other hand, FII, that is institutional investor coming in, they are not specifically concerned about what is the sector-wise distribution. For them, they are investing money in the listed securities in the stock exchange. So, they are not concerned with sector-wise allocation. They are concerned more about increasing availability of the capital. So, the answer here would be B. Third and fourth, third is FDI inflows only in secondary market, FII in the primary market. No, that is not wrong. They can be in the primary market also. We will discuss later on in the remaining lectures what is primary market, what is secondary market. Fourth, FII is considered to be more stable than FDI. No, quite the opposite. FDI is more stable. And again, the reason for stability is, the idea of stability is how easy is it for this money to go out of the country. If it is extremely easy for this money to go out of the country, then it is unstable. If on the other hand, the money can go out of the country, cannot go out of the country, that means it's not that unstable. So it depends on that. If you can take out money tonight, that means it's unstable for the economy. And if you can't take it out, it may be wrong for you, but for the country, it is stable. That is how we protect our own market, we protect our own investors. So the answer in this case would be B. If you want, you can take a screenshot from here as well. On that note, this brings us to the conclusion of this session. This was class number 3 of economics in this prelims crash course. I really hope that these topics and this revision has been helpful for you. Make sure that you attend all these classes. We have a total of 14 classes for economics that will go on from Monday to Saturday. Make sure that you join us for the next one tomorrow. If you have not watched any of the earlier classes, please do watch that as well. We're also running similar classes for polity as well on our YouTube channel. Please check that out as well. Make sure that you revise all your static concepts along with the current affairs. If you're new here, do hit the like and the subscribe button. Feel free to share this with your friends as well who are preparing for the IAS examination. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.